Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to the Vicenta Talks podcast, where we talk to our community about navigating tech change and making forward-thinking choices. Okay, today, so we have Luke Cleall with us, and we're going to have a conversation in the Vicenta Talk series about AI. A bit more of a conversation about AI, and I'm going to talk to Luke, who is deep into this sort of stuff with what he does on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully we're going to debunk some of the things that people are thinking about, worried about, and trying to achieve with AI in today's technological world. Welcome, Luke.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, fantastic. So do you want to tell us, first of all, a little bit about what you're up to right now and where IA sits in your day-to-day world? And
So yeah, we're, as a company, I run my own company called Make It AI. We're based up in Salisbury. We help businesses integrate AI into workflows, so we're very heavily into the AI sector at the moment.
Okay, and what sort of businesses come to you to sort of want that type of support?
It's honestly such a real mix. We've had everything from tradespeople, so sort of electricians and plumbers, up to big consulting firms and basically any business in between. There's sort of a real mix. Everyone hears this big keyword about AI, and they hear the big buzzword on the news about AI, but there's not that much out there other than using language models like ChatGPT to actually integrate into a process rather than just a back and forth with prompting.
Okay, so look, why don't we start then by looking at the attitudes to AI. You've got some big organisations that you work with, and you've got some small organisations. I think really interesting to see of the two what those attitudes are. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of their understanding, how they think they would adopt it, how would they use it. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the major barriers right now. People that don't understand.
Because when people hear about AI, there's a good chance, like our news in the UK only mentions bad stuff. I've not really seen a good post either. There's that police report that went out, and
yeah.
And they always talk about out in America where Microsoft is moving all these jobs around because of AI. There's never any positive push, but I think a lot of people hear about AI just through the news or through the internet, and they want to be involved in it. They hear it's this big, wonderful thing that is taking away a lot of repetitive, boring work out of their sort of workflows, but their understandings are still pretty small. I did a workshop about a week ago with local Chamber of Commerce in Salisbury, and as I wanted to tell about what I do, I could only really focus on this is what AI is. This is a little bit how to prompt. People have used ChatGPT or whichever model they want to use. They have a little go at it, but there's not much education in the big wider web that tells them about, okay, this is how you need to get the best out of it.
When you say that they have a go at it, give me an idea of what they tell you they're trying to do.
Generally, they're trying to do something like an idea for marketing, or they're trying to, they're almost asking it to generate the ideas for them, rather than how we sort of look at it as you come up with the ideas, you're the expert, you know what you're talking about, you give your task to ChatGPT or whatever, and then it can give you some good feedback or some structure of posting. But yeah, a lot of people are asking it also just like, write me 10 marketing ideas about fencing or something. And you're going to get a pretty generic response, because it's all about giving it the context and giving it the details.
Yeah, okay. And I think that leads to a bit of a problem that so we see as well, which is, funnily, Natalie, when she was on, talked a little bit about this, which is to sort of experiment, but experiment safely.
Yes.
And I think one of the big blockers at the moment is that because people are throwing exactly the type of of question into ChatGPT or Copilot. We're quite a big Microsoft house, so we use Copilot quite a big announcement about Microsoft and Anthropic just recently as well. So I think that will really harden some of the stuff that's going on there. They sort of use it, and there's almost then a scratch of the head, which is like, okay, fine. What was the point of that? Which is although we know AI is going to be really, really big, it almost feels like there's a whole sort of tranche of people that will be sort of left in the trail because they've played with it a little bit and then sort of gone, I don't get this. What do you think that we, as organisations that are in this game, what do you think that we can do to help sort of prevent lots of time wasting? Because that fencer, he wants to get out and put fences in the ground and get paid for it. He's not an IT person, or she, and so therefore it's sort of beholden on us to try and bring them along and introduce them to what the journey might look like.
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about that.
What I tell people when people ask what I do for work, and they're saying like, how are you building all these systems, but it's more about education. There's so much educating needs to be done. How I think of it is, you mention a website, everybody knows they need a website, or they know what a website is, or they know the website use.
Yeah.
There is no, same with the phone, they know what the phone is meant to do. They hear the word AI, and because it's such a wide, there's no, AI, a website is very specific, whereas AI is, it could be this, it could be this, there's so little amount of information out there that's just talk to most general people. I see so much online about AI, but then I'm so deep within, social algorithms push the stuff you're interested in.
Yeah.
And I thought, when I went into this sort of business, I thought, a lot of people must know about this already. But actually, coming into it, not many people know much. There's a lot of little bits of information scattered around the internet, but no one's looking really deeply into how to use these models properly.
Yeah, and whose fault do you think that is?
I'm not sure, actually.
Do you think that there's not enough information from those big organisations that are pushing LLMs? So the Googles and the Microsofts and the ChatGPTs and people like that. Do you think it's for them? I agree with you. I think that what's happened here is that the general view is that AI is from there to there.
Yeah.
It's put on the front of rockets that's going to rain down on us at some point in time, and it's also in our cars and all sorts of stuff like that, and it's sitting there on our laptops that we can do stuff with, and so therefore the application of it is so wide that I think that there's a difficulty for people to understand where does my business, where do the things that I need that to do, where does that slot? Where does it slot into this great big thing? Because again, I think you're right, is that people see it as being this big one, all-seeing eye entity, where it's not really, is it? Let's face it. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more regional than that, I think.
Yeah, I sort of see two ends of the scale. I see people come to me and they're like, okay, we want to use AI, but we don't really understand it. They might have, like I said, tried ChatGPT, but they don't realise it could do voice. You can put it as part of like a bigger, like a process or an automation, and you can then have like, it reads your emails, or there's various different AI tools out there that are, Fixer AI is one of them. I've had a lot of people talk about that. I've had a go at it. It basically manages your inbox. It's pre-writing emails for you. And there's other sides of the scale. People hear about AI and they just think, they see all this complicated stuff people mention AI agents or agentic workflow, where they think that they're going to give this AI thing access to everything and it's going to go and get them work and do their quotes and it's out there, but we're definitely not at that point yet where I would be happy with installing someone that into someone's system to say, right, this AI just is an employee now, it just does everything.
Yeah. So actually, you touched on a couple of things there, which I think that we see becoming more prevalent, is that first of all, people coming with some ideas of what they want to use AI for. But actually, you said something in that response there that is really critical, and that is that, look, you need to understand your own processes. It's not going to understand your business in the first go, and so therefore, if you're going to use AI to provide some efficiencies within your business, and I think that actually a vast majority of businesses, they want to try and understand how they can be more efficient. There's all of the connotations around that, like, well, we'll lose staff and we'll do that. But actually, generally speaking, what they want to do is they want to be more efficient in terms of what they do. And to do that, you need to understand what the sequence of events are in the thing that you're trying to make more efficient. And so therefore, if you haven't already had the headspace, you don't know how to do that efficiently, then giving it to AI, and particularly giving it to an agent and saying just crack on and do that every time for me, is not going to provide the results at all. So I think you're absolutely right, and you've touched on something there which is really key. And we talk about this to customers all the time, which is talk about the process first. So you have to think about how this thing fits together. And then it's an organisation like yours or mine, for example, that then can actually say, okay, well, here's how AI could help do that, and here are the possible outcomes of what you're going to get from it. And you're right. The end game is agents, and 90% of people are still playing with Copilot on their PC. They're nowhere near this situation where what they've got is a number of agents that are collecting things and then is serving up either reporting or actually driving some other further process forward or making something happen. And I think you're right. We're still a little way off that, but it's moving quite fast. And I think that there's organisations that are perhaps moving a little bit too fast in some cases there. And making some relatively big mistakes because they almost haven't done the groundwork to get themselves to a point where those agents would actually work and you could trust what's going on. And that's another question really I wanted to ask you, really, was about that whole sort of trust and the things that come out, where the reference points are. What's your view of how people should approach that?
Yeah, how we've looked at it for probably 99% of all the things I've ever built, they always have something we call human in the loop. So there's always that, let's say it's the email sender, so the AI might handle emails coming in, put them in different folders, write drafts, replies for things, but we keep it as drafts. We always say, like, it'd be, okay, what would you prefer? Coming to your email and everything's a mess, or coming to a folder where you've got like 10 drafts ready to send. You look through, make your little tweaks if needed, and then send them off. There's always, I think we're still definitely at the point where, unless it is just something very simple where it's just changing the odd number or adding a quote, we don't want to push, this is like completely automated. We always want that human in the loop, just a little bit of human verification, just to check.
Yeah. So you talking there, you're really, so some of the stuff that you're doing is really much more about trying to automate an outbound marketing message or a response to an inbound inquiry or marketing message. Would you say that's sort of where your focus lies in terms of the customers that you currently work with? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of internal process automation is sort of our specialty right now. Like we were saying about, we've got to find which workflows. We also do what we call an AI audit, where we'll almost just do a process audit of the company. That's either in person or over Teams, depending on the size of the company. Work out what process is there and say, okay, yes, we could use AI here, probably not AI here. I see a lot of, I think a great example is, I've seen a couple of videos of it, is when people, for recruitment companies, they put like an AI video avatar for the interviews, and it's like, it's okay. Such a bad idea, because when you're being recruited by a company or you're with a recruitment agency, the one point of when you actually talk to who's going to help you find jobs, or however which way around you're on, the one point where you actually get to talk to someone is like your most important. Like this is when they value me. If they throw you on a call with some AI agent avatar, which AI video is pretty good, but when you're talking face to face, it won't take long for you to realize it's not a real person.
Yeah.
And that is, as soon as I think that's the thing with AI. As soon as people don't want to be like shown that they're like, oh my god, I fell for it. They feel like they probably think, oh, I'm probably quite silly if I've not realised this is AI. So when they realise it, it just gives the game away, and you're like, it's...
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I suppose recruitment companies, they have tried to push the boundaries in terms of taking the Mark One eyeball, the human, out of the loop, particularly in the sifting and classification of CVs. So they've been putting some intelligence into it for quite a long time, which is one of the reasons why 90% of the time you won't get a response, because effectively it just goes in there and falls off the edge, because guess what, you haven't got that qualification, or whatever it might be, which is really, as you quite rightly say, is dehumanizing the process. And then actually putting an AI avatar up is actually just dehumanizing the process even further. Yeah. So it's actually, it's almost could be cited as a bad example of AI, I think, couldn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
I'd agree with you. I've not really thought about that before, but it's not the greatest example.
Yeah, when we look at a workflow and we think, right, okay, bottleneck here and bottleneck here. Let's say their bottleneck is sales calls, because you can only do one salesperson can only do one sales call.
Yeah.
Yes, you could automate it, but that is your key point in that process. You could probably automate all the point of the back and forth, the messages, the calls booked. All these calendar apps tell you, they give you the reminders. But that one point of sales call, that is your one point where you are, closing or you're being sold to. That is the most important part, and that shouldn't be, given out to some AI or some piece of code that that is your how you're
absolutely
going to sell your company.
Yeah. So again, it's interesting. So that what you're really lensing there, I think, Luke, is that actually people they're using AI, but it's actually it's quite rudimentary, and it's probably not the greatest use of an AI tool, because it's also there's a cost involved.
Yeah.
It doesn't. AI is not free, and certainly as you start to wind up how you're using it, it becomes more and more expensive. And obviously, there's time and people and expertise that you need around it to make that happen. Let's talk about trust of data for a second. So, I'm sure I have basically got to a point with an AI tool where it has clearly got the answer wrong. You have indicated to it that it might not be telling me the truth. You have pointed it at maybe some other reference information. It is then stuck to its guns for a while, saying, no, I'm absolutely correct, until such times as you've given it the killer blow and said, well, actually, no, here is really what it is. And then it's come back and said, and apologised, and said that and said that it's learned. More and more people see that, and obviously that then puts some mistrust in terms of where that data is coming from, the reference points that it's using. How do you see people being able to ensure that what they're doing, the trusted information? Look, large language models, there are people already stuffing rubbish into large language models to try and disrupt the whole process. Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of people worried about what the kind of output is going to be. They say that these huge, OpenAI, ChatGPT, they say that they've scraped the entire internet 4 times, which is just a huge amount of data. You kind of get your head around how much data that is, and what is, if it's learning, this is how the M dash, that long dash became so popular, because how these models learn is they looked at what the best writing style was, because they want to be the best. And then M dash is a very, it's quite you really have to understand the kind of place to put an M dash.
Yeah.
And now, since ChatGPT throws it out, not so much anymore, I think they've sort of taken it away, but especially at the beginning, it was showing up M dashes everywhere because this is the best writing style, but then it sort of gave away that
it was being written. Exactly right. And then effectively an agent went, don't ignore this if there's an M dash in it.
Yeah.
And you've got AI fighting AI, which is actually quite ironic in that respect. So, look, as I say, we're a big Microsoft house, and so therefore Copilot, the Ignite events that they have on, they made some really interesting announcements in terms of taking their AI models and basically having layers. So, there's a layer for people like yourself where you are developing for people AI models, and same for us. And then there's an intelligence layer, which is really where you're going to put all of that information. And they also talk about things like data lakes. For us, we do an awful lot of things with cybersecurity. We do an awful lot of stuff in terms of organising people's data so that it can actually be easier to use and just be more efficient. And sort of AI, it's almost the precursor to if you want to actually then involve AI in what you're doing. And so therefore this is a sort of a natural area that certainly Vicenza as an organisation plays in. And it's really quite apparent that the importance of these data lakes is really key. What's your thoughts about data lakes and where people get data from and how they can ensure that the information that they are then going to make decisions on is the right information?
Yeah, for some client projects, we've used, for where they are talking about in-house data, we've looked at, I think we've got a couple in process at the moment, haven't started the project yet, where we're looking at locally hosting LLMs or language models.
SLMs,
yeah. So the data they're pulling from is only the company data, there is no access to outside source.
Yeah.
Because then again, this is the issue with these models, is they have so much data involved in them that, you may, they're always the funny example I think is people say like talk to these models saying, think of a brand new game, like a board game that no one's ever said. And it gives this old idea and they're like, wow, that's really cool. And then you've only got to do a quick Google search and realise that, okay, it's just pulled from this website where this unknown, this less common game is.
Yeah. That's interesting that you've got organisations that are starting to have some sort of data sovereignty.
I think
effectively.
that's where we're going. I think that's...
Well, it's the only way that you can preserve IP.
Yes.
Okay, and...
especially how we're in the EU or the UK.
Yeah.
America, I think their data laws are less strict than ours, from what I know.
The Cloud Act really did bang holes in quite a lot of things. It's quite a dangerous act, really, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of organisations rein away from that sort of US involvement because it allows... It did weaken, for example, like the GDPR and the EU laws around conformance and compliancy. That's been, we've sort of tried to get that a little bit more in line, but we had to come down the scale rather than the US come up the scale in terms of that respect. But yeah, you're right. And small language models, I think, is absolutely, we completely utterly agree with you there, is that people have to understand is if they throw that out in a large language model, it is out there. Yeah. And it is going to be used and it's going to be referenced. And we've seen some scary stuff where people have put it up there and gone, hang on a minute, that's my data up there. And it's like, you put it up there.
We sort of look at it as, for just using these AI models just online, even a free version, paid version, I would never give it anything more than I wouldn't tell a stranger. That's sort of how I look at it. But there's definitely...
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking of that.
Yeah, if someone walked into this room...
That's a really good way of thinking of that.
Yeah, if someone walked in and they were like... And you just told them, if you were given this data, you'd just think, no.
Yeah.
Although it goes into a bigger pool and you'd never be able to find that piece of data, it's still it's all about the trust in your data.
And it's going to take that data and wherever it can serve it up. It might be anonymised, but it's going to serve it up, isn't it?
It's like the free version of ChatGPT has a setting... I think they might have got rid of it now, but there used to be a setting where you had to deliberately untick it, which would basically, if you left it ticked, it would add citations to Google. So what people would do is, if you knew an API key is, as we know, how you connect pieces of software together.
Yeah.
If you have someone's API key, you can basically get into their software and extract the data from it. So the people that knew what that looked like were just searching Google for API keys. And then when people are using the free version had, given its API key and said, oh, can you write a bit of code or did this, they'd be able to find those API keys, work out where they came from, and then obviously then they'd have the company access, and it's like, whoa, this is not good.
Okay. So let's move this on as we get towards the sort of conclusion of this podcast. Is tell me about what are the typical questions that you are asked when people come to you and go, hey, Luke, we're interested in this AI thing. What are the questions that generally come your way that you then have to field and answer?
I think they go around the sphere of what can AI do for me? There's all these different. Until I really
that's a big answer, isn't it? What?
Yeah, and that's definitely why we do those, as I said, AI audits where we look at existing business processes, or it might just be a little bit of consulting where they tell us exactly what they're doing day to day and where and we could slot the AI in. But AI these days isn't just text; it can do voice.
Do they come to you with problems? Do they come to you with a business problem, or do they come to you with this, we better get on the bandwagon type approach?
It's a real mix. I do have people come with problems and they're like, okay, and I'm like, okay, this is a good place to start because the issue, then we can go from there.
Almost feels like the safest place to start, because effectively you're getting something that is sort of boxed and bounded that you can then apply your expertise to, and they have got a problem, so they can see the cause and effect, and then and then the result, rather than going, well, I'm not quite sure what the result's going to be, but I know I need to do this. It's a bit more abstract, isn't it? In that
when
respect,
people come with a problem, it's like perfect customer right here. You're like, you're giving me the problem, and I'm going to give you the answer here. But yeah, the other way is when people are like, they hear that a lot of big companies are being pushed saying they need an AI strategy.
Yeah.
But there's no one knows what that is. There is no master document to tell you what an AI strategy is. You need to probably Google it. You're not going to get.
No.
It's probably worth asking AI, what is an AI strategy?
Yeah. No. Yeah. You're not going to get a really good answer to that one. So, what type of problems do they come to you with? What are the sort of things that you're seeing?
It's a lot of.
So give me the top two.
Top two. It is emails. Seem to be a big one at the moment. People have. And emails and calendars, I think, is my big two. So people with smaller companies, with calendars, it's more of the smaller companies. So, I know a few people we've worked with, and they're just one-man bands. They might do.
Yep.
They might be a tradesperson. They might be. They do therapy.
Yep.
And they want some way to. Their calendars are booked out fully. But when people cancel, they've got to handle the text. So we've done very simple solutions where their WhatsApp, they've got like a WhatsApp business account, and it has some kind of AI connected to it and the calendar. And when someone cancels and they say, oh, can I book in for next Thursday instead? Have you got any slots? It can then reference the calendar, have a little look, tell them what's available, and then book them on and off. And that sort of is a big time saver, especially for the person who doesn't have that time in the day, and they can't afford to have a receptionist or a VA. Yeah,
I mean, I can see some benefits there, but there's an awful lot of calendar tools out there that's not AI that can say you can book some time in my calendar. I mean, I've got one on mine where it will actually go and look at my calendar and see what slots are available. I get it; it might be able to handle the cancellation, but
you're completely right.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Yeah,
I think there's probably more stuff around that, which is more interesting in that respect. Okay, and then obviously from an email perspective, that's people just fed up with so much spam in their email box.
Definitely.
They want to do something. But auto replying back is also crap. I think it's
Well, yeah,
as you
so
said.
it's all
I think you're
draft.
right. We said this. You said this at the beginning. People are sort of scraping the surface of some things, which I think is not where AI is going to be going forward. And it's how do you go from this? Well, I use it to do this to flip it to something that's more heavily business orientated. I think is still quite a bit of a leap. Would you not say?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely like compared to how it was. I was looking at this market 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even predict where we're going to be in another
No,
2 years'
no,
time.
no,
It's just-
no, no. It's moving really
It
fast.
moves too fast. Image generation is a great example. 6 months ago, it
Yeah.
was okay.
Yeah.
These days, I'm seeing images and I'm like, I can't tell
No,
anymore, you know. And I'm like, when I can't tell, and I see all these images daily. I'm like, okay, this is going to get scary. What kind of things are going to get created from this?
Yeah, yeah, there are definitely some industries where it's been applied and is moving forward at such a colossal rate of knots. Yeah, it's almost unfathomable where it's going to go next. And some legislation and some control is definitely going to be needed there. And we've already seen that in the music industry and in the film industry. There's already people that are sort of reining back against how and why and what and royalties and stuff like that in that respect.
I mean,
Cool.
Grok is a great example. I won't go into that, but too far. But Grok at the moment is Grok on Twitter, on X, is the image, the Grok do this, and it's like, whoa, okay, this is opening up a whole can of worms.
Yeah, it's a little bit too unregulated from somebody that really pushes the boundaries hard across everything that he does.
Yes.
There are some massive dangers there. But hey, I think that the legislation will come in, and some of these big organisations are now being brought to bear in terms of their accountability. You see that TikTok in America just settled out of court for some damages and things like that, and I think that that's probably a bit of a straw in the wind in terms of those organisations have got to think about it. But hey, I think that also applies to everything that we do with AI as well, I'd say, wouldn't you? So I mean, it's going to be something where things that are generated that are AI that are wrong or misleading, even if you didn't really want them to be misleading, may well give you the opportunity, or may bring the opportunity for somebody to say, hey, I did something on the basis of what you said, and actually now I'm going to see you to do that, which is, I know the lawyers may well get more money out of this in that respect. Hey, look, Luke, it's been absolutely fantastic listening to you and talking to you about AI today. I hope you found it fun.
Thank you.
And we're going to do some more podcasts about other things. But Luke, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vicenza Talks podcast. If you've enjoyed the discussion, hit subscribe for more conversation with our community on cybersecurity, AI strategy, and future-focused business thinking. And if you've got questions or want to continue the chat, comment below or email me at sales@vicenza.com.